Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you happen to be watching this video. Introduction to Business 101, online with Professor Joe Lane. All right, we've done the video 7, 8, and 9, chapters 7, 8, and 9. This is chapter 10. Chapter 10 is on motivating employees. Gosh, we've learned a lot about management. You know, I got to thinking in chapter 7, that was kind of the here's management chapter. We learned the definition of what management was. We talked about the skills that managers had to have. We talked about the functions that managers perform. Managers plan and organize and lead and control. A lot of chapter 7 introducing a lot of the principles of management and the thing about management, top management, middle management, that sort of thing. And it talked a lot about planning in chapter 7. Strategic planning, tactical planning, operational planning, all those plans based upon your vision and your mission statement. Remember those things? You know, and you have goals and objectives and policies and procedures. Chapter 8 was more an organizing chapter. It really talked a good bit about organizing. And so chapter 9 was that little bitty chapter, remember? It didn't take us very long, just talking about the fact that we have moved from a manufacturing or goods economy to a service economy. 70% of our GDP, 85% of our new jobs in the service industry. Now, chapter 10 is talking about the lead or the leading function. Managers plan, organize, and lead. But you say, well, wait a minute, that's not the title of it. The title of the chapter is not leading. That's true. But here's the deal. To manage effectively, you have to lead. Or another way of saying that is, you as a manager have to be a leader. To be an effective manager, to be an effective leader, you must motivate your employees. That you can just kind of connect those dots. So chapter 10 is talking about motivating employees, but that's really the heart of leading, the heart of leadership. All right, let me see if I can find our notes here. And see how my notes, study notes for this chapter is how they kind of start out. Chapter 10, motivating employees, part of the leading function, which is just exactly what we said. Look, I don't want to motivate my employees. They should motivate themselves. They got a good job here. You know, they're making a pretty decent salary. It's safe here. I shouldn't have to do that. Sorry, it's 2020. Remember, you've got good employees, or you're trying to hire and maintain good employees. And we've talked about what a good employee is. Well, if you're going to hire a good employee, and you're going to keep a good employee, which is critical, you've got to keep them once you hire them. You've got to what? Train, mentor, coach, encourage, motivate those employees. That's just a part of your management function. Now, I wrote something down here. By the way, I'd like for you to be familiar with the fact that motivating is a part of the leadership function, and that it is management's responsibility to motivate employees. I wrote a little sentence down here that came out of the book. I really wish, there's sometimes that I really wish you were sitting here in my studio, my classroom, so we could actually discuss it. And here's a little sentence. People are willing to work hard if they feel like their work makes a difference and is appreciated. Do you believe that? Let me do that again. People are willing to work hard, generally speaking, most of the time, if they feel like what they do makes a difference and is appreciated. And I'll tell you this, now as we're just talking about motivation, we're just getting started here on this 3-hour session. Just joking, not 3 hours. If that's true, and I think it is, in my own life I think it's true. If that's true, then we've already got kind of a key to motivation right here, don't we? If you as a manager can make your employees feel appreciated and feel like what they do makes a difference, they're going to work harder. And I think another way of saying that is they're going to be motivated to do better. And look, managers, they perform a number of functions. They're busy. They plan, they organize, they lead, control. They can't spend 7.5 hours a day in motivation of employees. So that tells me two things. Within a business, you've got to have things built into a business, built into a department, built into an area that helps employees motivate themselves. So that you as a manager, now sometimes you're going to be actively trying to motivate folks. But you know, the key is self-motivation. The more that what they do and how they do it and the benefits they have of working with you and working with that company, the better that is for them, the better that they can self-motivate themselves. Okay. One other thing he talks about, where did I put it? Right here. When you're talking about motivation, something else you need to understand, and I guess I should say be familiar with, is intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. We receive intrinsic and we receive extrinsic rewards, and it makes a difference for us. All right, let me talk about those for a minute. We talked about this earlier, I think, and when we were mentioning something, and right now I can't remember exactly what led me into this, but let me go into it again. I think maybe social responsibility is what we were talking about. Businesses being socially responsible and people being socially responsible. But have you ever done something for somebody? Remember when I talked about that? You did something because you didn't have to do it, but you did it. And you felt really good about it. You helped someone. You helped an organization. You did something that wasn't required of you, but you just felt inside, this is something I want to do. And once you did it, you felt really good inside. You know, nobody had to say anything, nobody had to do anything, nobody even had to know you did it. But you felt really good. That's an intrinsic reward. Some rewards come from within. Now they can come from within the work setting. Nobody gives you anything, but just from within, things that you do, things that you say, whatever, makes you feel good inside. So that's one type of reward. Extrinsic rewards are rewards that's given to you by someone else. That supervisor comes up and gives you a pat on the back, says, hey, great job. You get a promotion. You get a pay raise. You get some type of recognition. Somebody else gives you something that motivates you, that makes you feel good. That's an extrinsic reward. We're getting ready. We're going to do one more chapter, chapter 11, and then you're going to take Unit 2 test, or test number 2, second week of class here for the summer. All right, you study really hard. You watch these videos. You take the study guide, the notes for each chapter, you review them. You make sure you know the know stuff, you're familiar with the familiar stuff. You really work hard, and you study hard. And you take test number 2, and when you finish taking that test, you see, I did a great job. I knew that stuff. Not only did I know the answer, but I understood it. I know that stuff. Well, that's that intrinsic. You feel good. You put in the time, you put in the effort, it paid off, you feel good inside. You got an intrinsic reward. I grade that test. It comes back a big old A. That's an extrinsic reward. So just as we're going into this chapter on motivation, should there be opportunities where you work that you can receive intrinsic rewards and extrinsic rewards? I think so. Should managers be able to do things within the company that allows employees to receive intrinsic and extrinsic rewards? Hey, should that manager be able to receive intrinsic and extrinsic rewards? Well, I think the answer to all that is yes. Now let me tell you, just give you one other intrinsic reward that I get here at Delta, and then we'll get into the rest of this chapter. We're missing, I think, delaying, I know, my favorite day of the year at Delta. And as I stand here doing this video, tomorrow would have been that favorite day at Delta for me in 2020, and that was spring graduation. We have one graduation a year, and that's our spring graduation. I think we should have more, but that's beside the point. We have spring graduation, and that was scheduled for tomorrow. That's been postponed or whatever. I don't know what's going to happen with graduate. I know some places are doing virtual graduations. I have no idea what we'll be doing with ours for those that are going to be graduating. I love graduation. People say, do you go to graduation? I say, well, sure. Do you have to? I don't know. I never thought about, do I have to go or not? But inside, I have to go. Because I'm going to be meeting folks this way in the summer. I'm going to be meeting some of you in Business 101 who are business majors. And here in a semester or two or three, if things get back to a new normal where we can have graduation face to face, I'm going to watch you walk across that stage and get a higher education degree. When I met you, I just first met you, I didn't know you. And now 2, 3, 4 semesters later, or whatever it takes, you're walking across that stage and you're getting a higher education degree. Do you think that doesn't give me some intrinsic reward? Wow, I remember when they took that first course with me, and now they're going across that stage. Students are a tremendous intrinsic motivation for me. And they do pay me for this job, so I do get an extrinsic motivation as well. All right, let's do this chapter. What our author does is he talks about some things that we should know to help us understand motivation. So I just threw up here, let's study motivation. Motivating employees, plan, organize, lead, control. Motivation is a part of leading. The employee, all of us as employees, managers and employees, non-managerial, intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. So let's look at some studies of motivation and how people are motivated and that sort of thing. The first one I want to look at, and it's taking this right off your handout, the first one I want to look at is Dr. Frederick Taylor. Back in the early 1900s, I think I have my timeline right there. He was the father of what's called scientific management. Here's what Frederick Taylor would do. Think of this, scientific management. Frederick Taylor would go in, he and his team, they would watch a person perform the job, whatever job they were doing. They would study, time and motion study, everything about the job. And then they would sit down and determine a better way to do that job. Can that job be done more effectively? Can that job be done more efficiently? And especially, we were talking here with employees. Back in the early 1900s, a lot of them were in the manufacture of goods, that type of thing, putting stuff together, working on things. And they would study those jobs and determine the very best way to do them. Then they would train that employee in the way to do that job even better. And then that person would start doing that job the new way. And in doing so, since they could do the job better and more effectively, they produced more for the company. That's a good deal, right? Right. Frederick Taylor, father of scientific management. But you say, wait a minute. I thought we were talking about motivation. Where did the motivation, I didn't quite catch the motivation part of that. Here's the deal. Many times, most times back then, the way an employee was paid was by how much they produced. They weren't paid a salary, so much per month. They weren't paid by the hour. They were paid by their production. So if they produced more for the company, what happened with them? They made more money. And so Frederick Taylor and his studies came up with this silly notion that money is a motivator. That's silly, isn't it? Not really. Not really. Money is money a motivator in your life? In most of us, money is a motivator. Now, it may be a motivator for different reasons, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes when we talk about some other things. But what came out of Frederick Taylor and the scientific management is that money is a motivator. It was a motivator back then, and it's still a motivator today. Okay, that was kind of the first motivational studies as we're relating to business and management and that sort of thing. Let me put the next one up here. It's right on your study guide. The Hawthorne Studies. I'd be familiar with Frederick Taylor, scientific management, the fact that money is a motivator, that sort of thing. The Hawthorne Studies, that's Dr. Elton Mayo. Now, Dr. Mayo said, you know what, wait a minute. We understand that if you look at a job, figure out a better way to do that job, a person can be more productive, that can motivate somebody. But you're looking at the job, you're not looking at the person. Let's look at the person. Let's see what we can, let's look inside, behavioral sciences. Instead of looking at the job, let's look at the person and see what we can find out about motivation. So they did a series of studies, and they did it at the Hawthorne Electric Plant. So that's the name, the Hawthorne Studies, under the direction of Dr. Elton Mayo. What came out of those studies? You'd have two groups. You'd have a group that the study group, and then you'd have the group that was not being studied. What they found was this: people that were a part of the study group, they knew they were being studied. It motivated them to do better because they were being treated special. Hey, in that group that was being studied, they had the opportunity to interact with each other. They had the opportunity to maybe even suggest how to do things. They had the opportunity to suggest maybe even what pay should be paid for that. They were made to feel special, and they were made to feel a part. And they were a part of a social system within that department or that plant. And that motivated them. And so Hawthorne Studies says, yes, money's a motivator, but there's more than just money that motivates people. And I guess what I could say as far as being familiar with the Hawthorne Studies, Dr. Mayo, that within any department or organization, whatever you want to call it, there's a social system. And people enjoy being a part of that social system. And people enjoy being a part of something special. So where whereas Frederick Taylor did some great work looking at the job, Dr. Mayo did some great work looking at the person. And not only is money a motivator, but being part of a social system and being special is also a motivator. Okay, so that's better put first. That's not the first. That was the second one. Then if you look at your study guide, the third thing we talk about, all right, good old Frederick Taylor, good old Abraham Maslow. Maslow, and you've probably seen this in some of your other classes, psychology or sociology classes or whatever, but Abraham Maslow, psychologist, Maslow said, you know what motivates people? Needs. Needs are what motivate us. We're motivated by our needs. If we have a need for something, if we're really thirsty, we have a need for something to drink, it's going to really motivate us to find something to drink. Now, the way these went, or what we'll call down here, are your basic or physiological needs. This is like the need for food, shelter, I think food is an F, food, shelter, clothing, that sort of thing, our basic needs. He said that's our first level of needs. That's the needs that are first for us. Those are the needs we satisfy first. That kind of makes sense, huh? Then he says our next needs are safety and security needs. Our third level of needs are social needs, the needs for interaction. Our fourth needs are what he called esteem needs. And then the fifth level was self-actualization. All right, let's talk about each one of those just a little bit. I've already mentioned this. Basic physiological needs for food, shelter, clothing, that sort of thing. Remember, this is a level where money can be a huge motivator, right? Get you up to your basic standard of living. Kind of goes back to Frederick Taylor and what he talked about. Safety and security needs, social needs. That kind of makes us think about Dr. Mayo, doesn't it? And the social system, social needs. So safety and security needs, those are explanatory. We want to feel safe. We want to feel secure in our home. We want to feel safe. We want to feel secure in our job. Social needs, most of us are social animals. We like interaction. We're people persons. We enjoy that. We enjoy that. That's why so many people marry and people enjoy being with each other and that sort of thing, because we're social, and people like to have that opportunity in work to be able to interact. Esteem needs. This is the need for achievement and recognition. We like to be recognized. We like to be able to achieve. And then the fifth level is self-actualization. For us to become all we can become, to explore our full potential. That's what that is. And Maslow says that we satisfy these needs as in a pyramid. We satisfy these first, then these, then these, then these, and then finally these needs. Or hopefully we satisfy all these levels of needs. So he says it's a hierarchy. We start at the bottom and we work up. And then the other thing Maslow said was, once a need is satisfied, it's no longer a motivator. If you don't have the basic human needs of food, shelter, and clothing, that's going to motivate you every day to get to that point. But once you're past this and you have this is no longer a motivator. That's what he's saying. So the idea is there's a hierarchy of needs, and needs are what motivate us. Is there anything to that? Yeah. So does money motivate us? Does being treated special and being a part of a social society motivate us, or do needs motivate us? Yes. We're studying motivation, and we're just looking at some of the studies that's been done to talk about how motivation, I guess you could say, works. I'd certainly be familiar with Maslow. I'd be familiar with his hierarchy of needs. Now, on the test, you're not going to be drawing any pyramids. You're not going to be, filling in all these sort of things, because this is just to be familiar with. But I may do a matching. Abraham Maslow on this side, needs over here. You need to be able to match that. I might do an esteem on this side, achievement and recognition on the other. I might do physiological needs, food, shelter, and clothing. That's how I want you to be familiar with it. So that's Maslow. A lot of people put a lot of stock in Maslow because needs do motivate us. Now let me do a little time out to mention this. Is that telling us anything in a business situation? Do businesses, even to where we've gotten to right now, do businesses need to recognize that? You as a manager, do you need to recognize these things? What have we learned so far? Money's a motivator. So in a business situation, should wages be such that folks can be motivated? Folks can do better, make more money, Frederick Taylor, satisfy basic physiological needs. Should the business situation give employees the opportunity for interaction to allow them to feel special in what they do? Realize that there's a social system that people need within a business, and that we are social animals. Is that being built into the workplace? Because remember, if it's being built into the workplace, managers don't have to do motivational stuff 7.5 hours a day. People can be more self-motivated because that motivation is built in. Is there the opportunity for recognition and achievement? Is there an opportunity for that employee to stretch themselves to become all they can become? So you see how, as we learn these different things about motivation from these studies, these things have got to be placed in the business. They've got to be utilized in the business world and in that business to allow that motivation to take place. Okay, time's back in. There was another guy, his name was Hertzberg. Now, if I were Hertzberg, here's how I would do this. I would draw a line right here. And Hertzberg said, look, Maslow's got this all wrong. He's partially right, but he's not completely right. Hertzberg said, look, these lower level needs, how do you spell Hertzberg? H-E-R-Z-B-E-R-G. H-E-R-Z-B-E-R-G. Okay, got it. Hertzberg says, I'm going to draw a line right through the middle of Maslow's pyramid. And Hertzberg said, look, these things don't motivate people. And I'm talking about the workplace primarily. These things don't motivate people. These are things in the workplace you expect. If you go to work somewhere, do you expect a livable wage? If you went to work and they said, well, Joe, we're going to hire you here at this place, okay? And we're going to pay you minimum wage. Wow, minimum wage! Oh my gosh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I expect minimum wage. I maybe expect even more than minimum wage. When you come to work for our place, you're going to be working in a safe place. Oh, thank you. No. Yeah, you expect it. You get the idea? Hertzberg says some getting together with other folks, safety and security, basic needs. These things don't motivate you. And, you expect to have these in a business. He said these things are what's called hygiene factors. They don't motivate you because you expect to have them. But if you don't have them, you are dissatisfied or not motivated. You see what he's saying? He said, look, there's expectations for this. These are hygiene factors. These are things you expect. And if I don't get them, I'm going to be dissatisfied. I'm not going to be motivated. He says, Hertzberg, the higher level social needs, the esteem and the self-actualization, these are the motivators. These are the things that motivate folks. I guess I could look. Let me see if I'm missing anything as far as the text is concerned about Hertzberg. Yeah, he talked about hygiene factors and Hertzberg's theory of motivating factors, job factors that can cause dissatisfaction if missing, but that do not necessarily motivate employees if increased. That's those hygiene factors. Motivators. Job factors that cause employees to be productive and give them satisfaction. So Hertzberg and Maslow are in agreement from here up. They're just in disagreement from here down. All right. So let's go ahead and clear this up. Who's right? Is Hertzberg right? Or is, I don't guess I ever wrote his name down here, Maslow. Is Maslow right? How many says Maslow? How many says Hertzberg? Do you want to know what I think? Now, don't hurt my feelings. Don't hurt my feelings. Go ahead and say, yeah, Professor Lane, I want to know what you think. Okay, here's what I think. I don't care. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me who's right. You say, what are you talking about? All right, here's what I'm saying. In a job situation, do we have to build into that job the opportunity for people to fulfill their basic physiological needs, their need for food, shelter, and clothing? Yes. Do we have to fulfill the need for them to feel safe and secure in what they're doing? Yes. And do we have to give them at least some interaction with other folks, even at break rooms or whatever? The answer is yes. So if that's the case, it doesn't matter if these things are motivators or if these things are expected things that can unmotivate someone if you don't have them. The bottom line is you got to have them. You either got to have them because Hertzberg says it keeps them from being unmotivated or dissatisfied, or you got to have them because they do motivate people. I don't know who's right, but you got to have them. And they both agree that the higher level social esteem and self-actualization are needs that you have to, are needs that have to be satisfied. And they do motivate when those needs are satisfied. So either way, you got to recognize it. You've got to allow people to be able to fulfill it. Okay, that's Hertzberg. Let's look at our study guide. Who's next? Job enrichment. Let's talk about that a little bit. I guess I better. You got this? I want you to be familiar with Hertzberg. I want you to be familiar with his motivators, his motivating factors, his hygiene factors. All right. And what he means by his motivators, what he means by his hygiene factors. Here he goes. Let's talk about job enrichment. Can you motivate somebody by enriching their job? Sounds like you should be able to. Now, I may not have put this on your study note. I'm sorry. But there's a couple other things that I want to go along with this. job enlargement is one thing, and job rotation is the other. Now, so wait a minute, what are we doing? Two ways, not the only ways, but two ways that you can enrich a job is through job enlargement or job rotation. Now, you talk about good employees. We talked about all those things good employees are: loyal, honest, have certain skills, have certain experience, have certain education, have certain motivations, those sort of things. Those are kind of good, good people. Do you want to give good people just menial tasks to do? You want to give good people just one thing, and that's all. Or the job they perform is very simple. There's something called job simplification. Do you want to use jobs, and not that you're going to be familiar or anything with it, do you want to simplify the job to the point that any dummy can do it? Well, no, because I'm not hiring dummies. I'm hiring good people. If you're hiring good people, one of the ways that you can probably motivate them is by doing job enrichment. Enlarge the job or use job rotation. Enlarging the job, what does that mean? Give them more responsibility. Give them more tasks to do. You know, it seems like we've talked about that somewhere, about responsibility and task and that sort of thing. Job enrichment. No. Empowerment. That's where it was. Remember we were talking about empowering employees? How important it was for the employee to be empowered? How important it was for the company to empower their employees so that they could be what? Responsive to the customer? Well, also, when you are empowering your employees, what else are you doing? You're motivating them. It's a way to motivate them by giving them additional authority, additional responsibility. You are enlarging their jobs, more tasks, more responsibility. People like that. Good people like that. And here's the other thing, job rotation. Not doing the same thing. Let people do different jobs. Rotate them around. Gives them new challenges. Not only does it give them new challenges, but it gives you people that can back up in several different positions if you have someone absent or something. Let me give you kind of a, I don't know, maybe it's a dumb example, but kind of an example of job enlargement, job rotation. I own a lawn care service, okay? And I have 3 people that work with me, for me, I don't like that term, work with me, in my lawn care business. One person rides the zero turn. The second person does the weed eating. And the third person uses the trim mower and the blower. All right. Now, you know, I've tried to hire good, dependable people and that sort of thing. But I have trouble with turnover. Is it possible that I could do something maybe that could help them stay with that job, maybe longer? Well, I know if I let them know that they're appreciated, that's going to help. I know if I make them feel like they're making a difference. You know what I could do? When we get through with a lawn and we've done a great job, I could say, you know what? We did such a great job here. This family's going to really appreciate it. They're going to probably enjoy their lawn even more because of what we've done. Now, they can feel good about what they did. They made a difference in somebody's life. It wasn't a huge, huge difference, but it was a difference. But then so here's something else you could do. What about Cross-training those folks. What about the person that does the zero turn? Train that person also to do weed eating the right way. And let that person do weed eating sometimes. Maybe also use the push mower sometimes. You see what? And then the person that does the weed eating is hard. I do a lot of weed eating at my place around the pond and that sort of thing. Weed eating is harder than sitting on my zero turn. So have the weed eater but also if you've never driven a zero turn and you got on it and you have a pond, you can drive that thing to the pond. You got to learn how to do it. So you see what I'm saying here? We're going to take these three people and we're going to cross-train these people. So actually what we're doing, we're kind of enlarging each one of them's job and we're doing a job rotation. Do you think that would motivate them some? I bet it would. I bet it would. And hey, I found out that the guy that does the weed eating primarily, that's kind of was his number one job, he's also great with equipment. So I've now given him the additional task of keeping up all of the equipment, making sure that the oil is changed, making sure all that's done, and I'm paying him additional money for that. That's kind of an idea of job enrichment. So I just want you to be familiar with what job enrichment is. I want you to be familiar with the two types of job enrichment. Job enlargement, adding responsibilities, adding tasks, and job rotation, moving a person from different, to different jobs, learning different jobs. I think maybe the one of the last ones he talks about in here, McGregor. Let me look and see. McGregor. McGregor's theory X, theory Y, and this is theory X, theory Y. McGregor was studying the attitude, or I guess we could say maybe attitudes of managers. Does the attitude that a manager have anything to do with how well employees are being motivated? That's a good study. And so here's what McGregor did. He divided managers into two basic types of attitudes that he found. Theory X managers felt like the employees did not want to work, did not want to accept responsibility. You had to stay on them all the time to get them to do anything. You had to sometimes use coercion. You had to sometimes threaten punishment, that sort of thing. That people were just crummy, and you just had to always having to force them to work and work hard. Boy, how'd you like to work for a Theory X manager with that kind of an attitude? Me either. I can say this, most times, by far the most times, in 2020 when you're hiring good employees, you don't want them teamed up with a Theory X manager. Got to get rid of those Theory X managers. There may be some isolated situations, or there may be some times when a manager has to revert to a Theory X. Like we talked about leadership styles. You should know your prevalent style, but you should be able to use all your styles. Well, sometimes a person may need to be a Theory X attitude manager for a little while, but for the most part, I don't want to work for that person. So this is the opposite. A Theory Y manager, their attitude is, hey, work is honorable. Work is something people enjoy. Work is something that people get satisfaction out of. People don't mind working. They like to work, and they'll accept responsibility if done correctly. How'd you like to work for this person? Me too. I'd much rather work for that Theory Y manager. That manager that is willing to empower employees because they know that employees are willing to accept tasks, accept responsibility, and that sort of thing. So, okay, now I'm confused. Does money motivate people? Does being a part of a social system and being treated special motivate people? Do needs motivate people? Does the job itself motivate people? Does the attitude of the supervisor motivate people? Yes. Yes, that's the answer. All of those things play a part in motivation. Have we also learned that within the company, should your company be managed, should your company plan, organize, lead, control, should your company be managed and have built in the opportunity for employees to be able to satisfy all those things we just talked about? Because if they can satisfy their needs, if they can do things with their job, if they do have the right type of attitude of a supervisor, what's that going to mean? It's going to motivate them. Motivate them. All right. The last thing I want to mention in this chapter, I always am afraid to use the word last, because if I use the word last, you're thinking he's about through, and you're right. I have something called, I do want you to be familiar with McGregor. I want you to be familiar with McGregor's Theory X, what that means as far as the attitude of managers, in Theory Y, what that means as far as attitudes of managers. What makes motivation difficult? Even if you've learned all this stuff, and you know it and you can apply it. I have what I call the Joe Lane theory of motivation. I know it's not really original with me, but I kind of just conjured it up together. Here's what makes motivation, I think, difficult. Think about the number one thing that motivates you. Matter of fact, you had to do a paper for me on motivation. That's one of the requirements of this course. I always enjoy reading those papers. If I have 20 people in my Business 101 class, do you think all 20 are going to have the same thing that motivates them? No. That's great. Different things motivate different people. So if you are a supervisor, if you're a manager, one size doesn't fit all. All these different things we've talked about motivation, all these things have to be built in. All these things have to be done. People work hard if they feel like they're appreciated and they make a difference. Managers have to show folks that they're appreciated. Managers have to show folks that they make a difference and be honest and truthful about it where they understand that. All right. So different people are motivated differently. So you've got to get to know your people also as a supervisor. One size doesn't fit all hard. One size doesn't fit all, so that makes it hard. Okay, I got it figured out. I know what motivates all 12 of my people. I'm done. No, you're not. And here's why. Here's the second part of things that makes motivation difficult. Now let's think about you. Tell me what you wrote me, or think in your mind what you wrote me on that paper, what motivates you. All right? Now let me ask you this question. That number one motivator in your life, was that your number one motivator in your life last year? 3 years ago? 6 years ago? 10 years ago? Almost all of you are saying no. Different things happen as we mature, as we get older. Events occur in our lives. Things happen with us. And those things change our motivations. So what's the number one motivator in our life? You know. If you ask me, what's the number one motivators in your life? My faith is a huge motivator. My faith is very strong, and it's a huge motivator in my life. My family's a huge motivator in my life. Y'all are motivators in my life, as I've already mentioned about graduation and just being with you. So what makes motivation difficult? Even at best, it's that different people are motivated differently. And the same person is motivated differently at different times. So you're never going to be able to say, I got it done, motivation finished. Because motivation of your employees is going to be continually changing. So you're going to have to be adapting to that and doing different things to make sure you are as a manager and your company to motivate employees. Okay, I think that's chapter 10 on motivation. We've got one more chapter, and then we will be finished with unit 2, And we'll be taking test number 2, which in our summer classes will be the second week of summer classes. Okay, you know the drill. I have to do make a large sound so that my executive producer, Ryan Pierce, will know I'm through with another chapter. I'm getting ready to do that. And then I am going to see you in chapter 11. Thank you.